Lena had always thought of her life as ordinary. She lived in a small town with narrow streets, friendly neighbors, and a quiet routine. Her days were filled with work at the local library, evenings spent reading, and weekends with friends. She rarely thought about her grandmother, who had lived far away in a house hidden deep inside the forest. Their relationship had never been close. Lena's grandmother was mysterious, quiet, and spoke in stories that seemed like fairy tales. Lena had always listened politely, but she never understood her grandmother's fascination with the forest or the strange things she claimed to know. One morning, as Lena was arranging books in the library, a letter arrived that would change everything. It was not like other letters. It had a thick wax seal with an unusual symbol that Lena had never seen before. The envelope was made of heavy, cream-colored paper and smelled faintly of lavender. Her hands trembled slightly as she broke the seal. Inside was a letter that made her heart beat faster. It read that her grandmother had passed away peacefully in her sleep, and that Lena had inherited her house in the forest. At first, Lena thought it was a joke. She had never visited the house and did not even know its exact location. The idea of traveling to a forest she had never seen both excited and scared her. But as she read the letter again, she realized it was real. The house, along with its belongings, was now hers. Lena felt a strange mix of emotions. She was sad for her grandmother, nervous about the unknown, and curious about what awaited her. That evening, Lena packed her bag. She took warm clothes, a flashlight, a notebook, and a few personal items. Her mind was filled with questions. Why had her grandmother left the house to her? What secrets did it hold? The forest had always seemed mysterious, almost magical, in her grandmother's stories. Lena wondered if the house would be as strange as she imagined. The journey to the forest was long. Lena traveled by bus and then walked along a narrow dirt path that twisted between tall trees. The air changed as she went deeper into the woods. It became cooler, fresher, and filled with the scent of earth and moss. Birds with colorful feathers flitted through the trees, and small animals peeked from the bushes, watching her silently. Lena felt as if the forest itself was alive, observing her every step. After hours of walking, she finally saw the house. It was larger than she had imagined, with dark wooden walls that had aged beautifully. Moss covered parts of the roof, and vines climbed along the sides, as if the forest itself wanted to embrace the building. The windows reflected the trees like mirrors, and the front door was carved with symbols that seemed both ancient and mysterious. Lena's curiosity deepened. The house did not look abandoned. It seemed as if it had been waiting for her. She stepped closer and touched the door. The wood was cold and smooth under her fingers. Taking a deep breath, Lena pushed it open. A creak echoed through the empty hall as the door swung inward. Inside, the house smelled of old wood, lavender, and something Lena could not identify. The air was still, and the quiet felt heavy. Shadows danced along the walls as she moved, making the house feel alive. Lena explored the living room first. Dust covered the furniture, but everything was neatly arranged. On the shelves were books of all sizes, some with titles she recognized and others that looked ancient. A large fireplace stood at one end of the room. On the mantel, there were framed photographs of people Lena had never seen. Their eyes seemed to follow her as she walked past, and she shivered slightly. Despite the strangeness, there was comfort in the orderliness of the house. It was clear that her grandmother had cared deeply for this place. Near the fireplace, Lena noticed a small wooden box tied with a ribbon. It seemed out of place, almost like a personal message left for her. She untied the ribbon and opened the box carefully. Inside were letters, written in her grandmother's neat handwriting. The first letter began with a warm greeting, telling Lena how proud her grandmother was of her, even though they had not been close. The letters spoke of the house, the forest, and the secrets that Lena had yet to discover. They contained stories of strange plants, unusual animals, and the wisdom her grandmother had learned over her lifetime. Lena read the letters again and again, feeling a connection she had never felt before. Night fell quickly in the forest. Lena lit a small lantern and explored the upper floors of the house. The bedrooms were simple but cozy. Each room had personal touches, a vase with dried flowers, a quilt folded neatly on the bed, and books stacked on the nightstand. Lena realized her grandmother had lived here with care and attention. She could almost feel her presence in the quiet of the house. Lena tried to sleep that night, but the house was too alive with mystery. Outside, the trees swayed, and the wind whispered through their branches. The sounds were soft, like voices calling her name. Shadows moved across the walls, though Lena could see no one. She told herself it was her imagination, yet a part of her felt watched, as if the forest and the house were observing her. Despite her fear, she could not stop thinking about the letters, the photographs, and the secrets that awaited her. She sat by the window, watching the moonlight reflect on the forest floor. The house felt like a bridge between the ordinary world she knew and the extraordinary world her grandmother had inhabited. Lena realized that inheriting the house was more than just gaining property. It was an invitation. The forest, the house, and everything within it were calling her to explore, to learn, and to understand the life her grandmother had lived. As she drifted to sleep, Lena promised herself that she would uncover the mysteries of the house and the forest. She felt a mixture of fear, excitement, and wonder. Little did she know that the first night in her grandmother's house was only the beginning. The forest, the house, and her grandmother's secrets had been waiting for her, and they were ready to reveal themselves in ways she could never imagine. The first night in the house was harder than Lena had expected. Even though the rooms were cozy and the bed soft, the silence was strange. The kind of silence that made every small sound in the house feel louder. The wind outside rustled the trees, and their shadows stretched across the walls. At first, Lena tried to tell herself that it was only the forest moving. But soon, she noticed the shadows did not always match the trees. Some moved in patterns that made her heart race. After hours of tossing and turning, Lena gave up on sleep. She lit a small lantern and sat in the living room. The letters from her grandmother lay open in front of her. She had read them once, twice, and now she wanted to read them again. Each letter seemed to tell her more about the house and the forest. One letter described a room hidden in the house, a place her grandmother had always kept secret. The room contained objects of knowledge and mystery that Lena was not ready to see yet. The letters also mentioned strange sounds, glowing lights, and events that could only happen in a house connected to the forest. Lena shivered as she read, realizing her grandmother had lived with secrets most people could not imagine. Curiosity soon replaced her fear. She wanted to explore every corner of the house. Even at night, Lena walked through the rooms, feeling the wooden floors creak under her feet. Each room seemed familiar yet strange. Portraits of unknown people lined the walls. Some were children playing in gardens, some were men and women in old-fashioned clothes, and some were animals she did not recognize. The eyes in the portraits seemed to follow her. She could feel them watching, but not in a threatening way. It was as if they were waiting for her to understand something. In the dining room, Lena noticed a small cupboard tucked into the corner. She opened it carefully and found cups, plates, and silverware that looked unused. On the top shelf, there was a small, carved wooden box. Lena lifted it and felt the cool smooth surface under her hands. She opened it and found a few trinkets, stones, and a tiny piece of paper. The paper had a short message in her grandmother's handwriting: "Trust the house. It knows the forest and will guide you." Lena held the note tightly, feeling a strange warmth in her chest. She did not understand yet what it meant, but she knew the house was more than just walls and furniture. As the night grew darker, Lena wandered toward the staircase. It led to the upper floor, where she had seen more rooms. The steps creaked under her weight, echoing through the quiet house. In one bedroom, she found a wardrobe filled with old clothes, some of which seemed to belong to children from long ago. Lena wondered who had worn them and why they were kept in such perfect condition. On the bedside table, there was a small notebook. She opened it and found drawings of the forest. Some were simple sketches of trees and rivers, but others showed paths that did not exist in any map. The notebook also had notes about animals that Lena had never seen, and plants that glowed faintly in the dark. Her grandmother had written that these were rare and magical, and only someone who understood the forest could find them. Lena's heart beat faster. She realized the house and the forest were full of secrets waiting to be discovered. Suddenly, a sound caught her attention. It was faint at first, like someone whispering her name. Lena froze. She told herself it was the wind, but the voice became clearer. "Lena!" It whispered, soft but steady. She felt a chill run down her spine. She turned toward the window and saw the trees swaying, though there was no wind outside. The shadows stretched and twisted across the walls. Lena's mind raced. Was it her imagination, or was the forest trying to communicate with her? She took a deep breath and whispered back, "I am here." "Who are you?" To her surprise, the shadows on the walls shifted. They formed shapes that looked like people, animals, and symbols. Lena's fear mixed with wonder. The house was alive in a way she had never expected. The whispers continued, but now they seemed to speak in a language she could not understand. The sounds were musical, like a song, and yet they carried meaning she could feel in her heart. Lena realized that the house and the forest were connected, and her grandmother had known this. Lena decided to explore the house one more time that night. She went into the kitchen and found jars filled with dried herbs. Each jar had a small label, some in familiar handwriting, some in strange symbols. She opened one carefully and smelled it. The scent was calming, almost magical. She could feel her mind clearing, her thoughts becoming sharper. She realized that her grandmother had used these herbs not only for cooking but for something deeper. Perhaps they were part of the secrets of the house. By midnight, Lena returned to the living room. She sat on the old sofa and looked around the room with new understanding. The house was not empty. It had a memory. Every object, every shadow, and every whisper carried the history of her grandmother's life. Lena felt a deep connection forming. She understood that she was not just an inheritor of a building. She had inherited knowledge, stories, and a connection to the forest itself. As the hours passed, Lena slowly began to feel tired. She returned to her bedroom, but sleep did not come immediately. She lay in bed, listening to the soft whispers of the forest outside, imagining the house guiding her through its secrets. She realized that the inheritance was not simple. It was a responsibility. She had to learn, explore, and understand. And she knew, deep inside, that her grandmother had chosen her because she was ready, even if she did not realize it yet. By morning, Lena finally fell asleep. Her dreams were filled with glowing trees, mysterious animals, and paths that seemed to move on their own. She saw visions of her grandmother walking through the forest, speaking to figures that Lena could not see clearly. The dreams were strange and beautiful. When she woke up, the forest outside the window glimmered in the first light of day, and the house seemed to welcome her. Lena knew that this was only the beginning. The forest, the house, and her grandmother's secrets had more to show her. She could feel it. And she could not wait to discover what awaited. The morning sun shone through the tall windows, casting golden light across the wooden floors of the house. Lena awoke feeling a mixture of excitement and determination. She could not stop thinking about the hidden messages in her grandmother's letters and the mysterious objects she had seen the night before. Today, she decided, she would explore every corner of the house, hoping to uncover the secrets her grandmother had left behind. After breakfast, Lena began with the study. The room was lined with tall bookshelves, filled with dusty books of all sizes. Some books were thick, leather-bound volumes, while others were small and delicate, with yellowed pages. As Lena ran her fingers along the spines, she noticed that one shelf felt different from the others. It was slightly loose, and the wood creaked strangely when she pressed against it. Her heart beat faster. She had read in one of her grandmother's letters about a hidden room, and now she wondered if this shelf could be the entrance. With careful hands, Lena pushed the shelf. To her surprise, it moved easily, revealing a narrow doorway. A faint draft of cool air escaped from the opening. Lena hesitated for a moment, then took a deep breath and stepped inside. The door closed quietly behind her, leaving her in darkness. She switched on her flashlight, and its beam revealed a steep staircase leading down into the earth. The air smelled of damp wood, earth, and a faint hint of something sweet she could not identify. The staircase seemed endless, but Lena descended slowly, gripping the railing for support. The walls were lined with more books, strange drawings, and small shelves holding objects that glimmered faintly. She could feel her grandmother's presence everywhere, as if she had left this place for Lena to discover, knowing she would find it when she was ready. At the bottom of the stairs, Lena found herself in a room unlike anything she had imagined. The space was large, almost like a small library combined with a workshop. Jars of dried herbs lined the shelves, their colors vivid and their scents rich. Crystals of different shapes and sizes sparkled in the light of her flashlight. Strange objects, some shaped like animals, some geometric, were arranged neatly on tables. On one wall, large maps were pinned, showing not only the forest around the house but areas that Lena had never seen on any map before. In the center of the room was a large desk, covered with an open book. Lena stepped closer and gasped. The pages were filled with intricate drawings of plants, animals, and symbols she could not recognize. Some of the plants had glowing leaves, and some of the animals looked like creatures she had only seen in her grandmother's stories. The symbols seemed to move slightly, shimmering under the light. Lena reached out to touch the page and felt a strange warmth. The book was alive in a way she could not explain. She spent hours examining the objects in the room. Each jar, each crystal, and each drawing seemed to hold meaning. Lena realized that her grandmother had not just been a quiet old woman. She had been a scholar, an explorer, and perhaps even a protector of the forest. The hidden room was a library of knowledge, a place where the ordinary world and the magical world met. Lena felt both awe and responsibility. She understood that this room had been prepared for someone who could continue her grandmother's work. In one corner of the room, Lena found a small chest. It was locked, but there was a key taped to the bottom of a nearby shelf. With trembling hands, she opened the chest and found more letters, drawings, and small trinkets. One letter was addressed to her specifically. It read, "Lena, if you are reading this, it means you have found the hidden room. The forest and this house have chosen you. Here you will learn about the plants, the animals, and the magic that protects our home. Be patient, observe carefully, and respect the forest. It will teach you more than I ever could in words." Lena's hands shook as she held the letter. Her grandmother's words felt like a guide, comforting and challenging at the same time. She understood that she had inherited more than a house. She had inherited knowledge, responsibility, and a connection to something greater than herself. The hours passed quickly as Lena explored every corner of the hidden room. She touched the crystals and felt warmth and energy flow through her hands. She smelled the herbs and noticed their calming and sharp scents. She examined the maps, realizing that they showed paths, rivers, and clearings that existed only in the forest, hidden from ordinary eyes. Lena's mind was full of questions. How had her grandmother discovered all of this? How long had she studied the forest, and what had she learned that Lena could now understand? As night approached, Lena realized that the hidden room was not just a place of study, it was a place of connection. She felt a bond with her grandmother and the forest that was stronger than anything she had ever experienced. The house seemed alive, breathing around her, and the shadows in the corners moved as if guiding her attention to the objects she needed to see. Lena understood that her grandmother had trained herself to notice these things, to communicate with the house and the forest, and now it was Lena's turn. She found a small chair and sat at the desk, looking at the large book once again. Lena traced her fingers over the drawings of plants and animals, trying to memorize their shapes. She opened a notebook that her grandmother had left and began to copy some of the symbols. Even though she did not understand their meaning yet, she felt that practicing the symbols was the first step to learning the secrets of the forest. The room was silent except for the soft hum of the house around her. Lena felt peace, even as her excitement grew. Before leaving the hidden room for the night, Lena carefully arranged the objects as she had found them. She wanted to respect the space her grandmother had created. As she climbed back up the stairs, she felt a strange warmth behind her, as if the room itself was watching and approving her actions. When she reached the main floor, the house seemed calmer. The shadows were no longer moving in strange patterns, and the whispers from the night before were gone. It was as if the hidden room had absorbed Lena's curiosity and excitement and had given her a gift in return, understanding that the house, the forest, and her grandmother's legacy were all connected. That night, Lena lay in her bed thinking about everything she had seen. She realized that her grandmother had lived a life full of wonder, discovery, and responsibility. Lena felt proud and honored that she had been chosen to continue the work. She understood that the forest held more mysteries than she could ever imagine and that the house was the key to unlocking them. Lena closed her eyes, ready to dream about the hidden room, the glowing plants, the magical creatures, and the secrets that were waiting for her. She knew that the next day would bring new discoveries, and she could not wait to see what else the house and forest would reveal. The next morning, Lena woke up early. Sunlight filtered through the tall windows of her grandmother's house, casting golden patterns on the floor. She felt excited and nervous at the same time. The hidden room had shown her so many secrets, and now she wanted to explore the forest around the house. Her grandmother's letters had spoken of paths, glowing plants, and creatures that were rare and magical. Lena wanted to see if any of it was true. She packed a small bag with a notebook, a flashlight, and a few essentials. She left the house quietly, stepping onto the soft earth of the forest. The trees towered above her, their branches forming a green canopy that let sunlight through in scattered beams. The air was fresh and smelled of moss and wildflowers. Lena could hear birds singing and leaves rustling, but there was another sound too, softer and stranger, a faint whispering, like the forest itself was speaking. Lena walked carefully along a narrow path. The forest felt alive. Every step she took seemed to change the way the light fell, and small animals peeked at her from behind the trees. Rabbits, squirrels, and even birds she had never seen before watched her with curiosity. Some had bright colors, almost glowing in the morning light. Lena remembered her grandmother's letters about magical animals that only appeared to those who were ready to see them. She smiled, realizing that maybe she had been chosen to see these wonders. After walking for a while, Lena found a small clearing. In the center was a pond so clear that it reflected the sky like a mirror. The water shimmered with a soft light, even though the sun was high in the sky. Lena knelt at the edge of the pond and looked into it. She could see shapes moving beneath the surface, fish that glowed faintly, plants that swayed as if dancing, and strange reflections that did not match the trees around her. She touched the water with her hand, and a ripple spread across the surface. The reflections shifted, showing visions of her grandmother walking through the forest, speaking to unseen figures, and placing objects carefully among the trees. Lena felt a chill of awe. She understood that the forest and the house were connected in ways she could not yet explain. Every tree, every stone, and every stream seemed to have meaning. She realized that her grandmother had not just lived here, she had been part of the forest itself. The forest had trusted her grandmother, and now it was observing Lena. As Lena continued exploring, she noticed glowing flowers along the path. They were small, delicate, and emitted a soft, gentle light. When she bent down to examine them, she found that the leaves had tiny symbols carved naturally into them. Her grandmother's letters had mentioned plants that held messages, and Lena suddenly understood that these flowers were one of them. She carefully sketched the patterns in her notebook, feeling a sense of wonder she had never felt before. The forest seemed to respond to her presence. Birds with bright feathers flew above her, landing nearby and watching her curiously. A small fox with golden fur appeared on a rock, its eyes shining with intelligence. It did not run away when Lena approached. Instead, it sat quietly, as if waiting for her to notice something important. Lena remembered her grandmother's advice: the forest shows itself only to those who respect it and observe carefully. She nodded, feeling the fox's gaze and sensing that it was guiding her to pay attention. Hours passed, and Lena found herself deeper in the forest. The trees grew taller and closer together, forming a natural tunnel above her. Sunlight barely reached the ground, and the air was cool and soft. In the distance, she saw a faint light glowing between the trunks. Curious, she followed it. The light led her to another clearing, this one larger than the first. In the center was an ancient tree, its trunk wide and twisted, covered in moss and vines. The glow came from the tree itself, as if it carried a light inside. Lena approached the tree carefully. When she touched its bark, a strange feeling ran through her body, a connection, a memory that was not her own. She saw visions of her grandmother, standing in front of this very tree, placing crystals and stones in its roots. She saw whispers of wind carrying messages, shapes of animals moving quickly among the branches, and the forest responding to her grandmother's presence. Lena realized that this tree was special. It was a heart of the forest, a place where the magic of the woods was strongest. For the rest of the day, Lena explored the area around the tree. She found small trails marked with stones and carved symbols, just like in her grandmother's notebook. The forest seemed to guide her, showing paths she would not have noticed otherwise. She saw tiny animals peeking out from bushes and plants with glowing leaves that changed color when she moved near them. Each discovery made her heart race with excitement. The forest was alive in ways Lena could not explain, but she felt safe, watched over, and connected. As evening approached, Lena returned to the house, her mind filled with questions and wonder. The forest had shown her glimpses of its magic, but she knew there was much more to learn. Back in the hidden room, she sketched the glowing flowers, the golden fox, and the ancient tree in her notebook. She realized that her grandmother's work was far from finished. The forest still had secrets to reveal, and now it was Lena's responsibility to understand them. Before going to bed, Lena looked out the window at the dark forest. The trees swayed gently in the evening breeze, and she could almost hear the soft whispers again. She felt a mixture of awe and anticipation. She knew that the forest had accepted her presence and that it would guide her as she learned more. Lena understood that her life had changed forever. She was no longer just a visitor in her grandmother's house. She was part of the forest, part of its mysteries, and part of a story that had begun long before she was born. That night, Lena lay in bed, her thoughts filled with the wonders of the day. She thought about the glowing flowers, the golden fox, and the ancient tree. She thought about her grandmother, who had left these secrets for her to discover. She knew that tomorrow would bring new adventures and new lessons. Lena closed her eyes, ready to dream of the forest, the house, and the magic that awaited her. She felt a sense of purpose and excitement she had never felt before. The forest had whispered its first secrets, and she could not wait to see what would come next. The morning sun rose softly over the forest, sending golden light through the trees and into the windows of her grandmother's house. Lena woke with a sense of purpose. After days of exploring the house and forest, she felt ready to understand the full meaning of her inheritance. The hidden room, the glowing flowers, the golden fox, and the ancient tree had shown her glimpses of the forest's magic. Today, she hoped to discover the truth. Lena began by returning to the hidden room. She carefully opened the large book on the desk and traced her fingers over the intricate drawings of plants, animals, and symbols. She noticed patterns she had not seen before. Some of the drawings seemed to connect with the maps on the walls, forming paths that led through the forest in a way she had not realized. Lena's heart raced as she recognized the purpose of the hidden room. It was not just a study, but a guide. It contained instructions, knowledge, and keys to communicate with the forest. On one of the shelves, she found a small, sealed envelope with her name written in her grandmother's handwriting. She opened it carefully and read the letter inside. It said, "Lena, the forest and this house are alive. You have learned to observe, to listen, and to respect them. Now it is time to see the forest as I saw it. Follow the instructions in the book. Trust the house, and it will guide you." Lena took a deep breath and opened the book to the section her grandmother had marked. It described a ritual, but it was unlike any Lena had ever imagined. It did not require fire, loud words, or dangerous ingredients. Instead, it asked for attention, patience, and a connection to the forest. She read each step carefully. The ritual involved arranging crystals in a circle, placing certain plants at specific points, and focusing her thoughts on the life of the forest. Lena realized it was a way to open her mind to the forest's magic and to see it as her grandmother had seen it. Following the instructions, Lena arranged the objects in the hidden room. She placed the crystals in a circle on the wooden floor. She set small potted plants and jars of herbs at points around the circle, as the book instructed. Then she sat quietly in the center, closing her eyes and focusing on her breath. At first, nothing happened. Lena felt a little nervous, wondering if she had done something wrong. But slowly, she began to feel a warmth spreading through her hands, up her arms, and into her chest. It was gentle and comforting. As Lena focused, the room seemed to shimmer. The walls became transparent, and she could see the forest outside. But this time, it was different. She could see every tree, every leaf, and every creature as if the forest were alive and breathing. Birds flew from branch to branch, animals moved freely, and plants glowed faintly in the sunlight. The air was filled with sounds she had never heard before, soft whispers, rustling leaves, and the gentle hum of life. Lena realized she could feel the energy of the forest flowing through her. Suddenly, she saw visions of her grandmother walking through the forest. Her grandmother placed crystals, spoke to animals, and tended to plants with care. Lena could see that every action her grandmother had taken was part of a larger purpose, to protect the forest and maintain its balance. She understood that the hidden room, the house, and the forest were connected, and that her grandmother had trained herself to communicate with all three. Lena felt a new sense of clarity. She could see paths through the forest that were hidden to ordinary eyes. She could sense where rare plants grew and where animals gathered. She understood the language of the forest, not in words, but in feelings, images, and intuition. It was as if the forest itself was speaking directly to her, teaching her, guiding her. Hours passed, but Lena did not notice. She was completely absorbed in the experience. She felt a deep connection not only to the forest but to her grandmother. It was as if the knowledge and wisdom of generations were flowing through her. She realized that the inheritance was not just a house or a collection of objects. It was a responsibility and a gift. She was now the guardian of the forest and the house, just as her grandmother had been. When the visions faded, Lena opened her eyes. She felt transformed. The hidden room no longer felt like a room. It felt like the heart of the house, a place where the forest and the human world could meet. Lena stood up, feeling strength, purpose, and calm. She understood that her life had changed completely. She was no longer an ordinary girl from a small town. She was a part of something larger, something magical, and something alive. As Lena stepped outside, the forest welcomed her. The golden fox appeared again, sitting quietly at the edge of the clearing. It looked at her knowingly, as if acknowledging her understanding. The glowing flowers seemed brighter than ever, and the ancient tree radiated warmth and energy. Lena walked slowly, taking in the sights and sounds. Every step felt like a conversation with the forest, every breath a connection with life. That evening, Lena returned to the house. She wrote in her notebook everything she had seen and felt. She knew that she had much to learn and that the forest would continue to teach her. The hidden room, the house, and her grandmother's letters would guide her as she grew in understanding. Lena felt gratitude for the opportunity and the responsibility she had been given. She knew that her life would never be the same, and she welcomed the change. Before sleeping, Lena looked out the window at the darkening forest. The trees swayed gently, and she could feel their energy flowing through the house. She thought about the days ahead and the lessons she would learn. She knew that there would be challenges, but she also knew that the house and the forest would guide her. Lena felt a sense of peace and excitement. She had inherited a strange house in the forest, but more importantly, she had inherited a legacy, a connection to magic, nature, and knowledge that would stay with her forever. As she closed her eyes that night, Lena smiled. She had discovered the truth her grandmother had left for her. The house was not just a home, it was a gateway, a teacher, and a protector. The forest was alive, whispering its secrets, and Lena was ready to listen. She was no longer a visitor in her grandmother's life or the forest. She was part of it, and her journey had only just begun.